The clean both start with what I call a jump stance. I call it a jump stance because your legs are straight down, your feet are directly under your hips, and you're in the position that you'd be in if you were going to do a vertical jump. Anytime you're going to jump, you want your feet here. If you were out here, you wouldn't be able to jump very high, right? All right. So keep that in mind when you're doing it. Think about doing a jump, a vertical jump, where you can really fire your hips. Okay. So what's the second cue that you see there on the board? Okay. Feel the steel means we're going to step up close enough to the bar where we can feel the steel with your shin bone. Okay? And you're going to feel it in the smooth part of the bar. The bar has a bevel part and a smooth part. If you're too wide, you're not in a jump stance, your shins will be out there in the rough part. For me, I need to have about 2 inches inside of the smooth part where my shins touch. If they're not touching and the bar is too far in front of you like that, the further you get from it, the more difficult it is to lift because it's further from your center of gravity. If you could lift this directly in the center, it would be even easier to lift. Okay? So we're going to make sure we can do what? Number one? Get the jump stance. Number two? Feel the steel. Then I try to think of a concept that gives you a visual cue for when you're helping coach each other. Those two things are easy to see, right? When somebody addresses the bar, are their feet in a jump stance, and are they close enough to feel the steel? Next one I call figure four because that's pretty much the shape your body gets into when you're in the down position. Okay, so if I'm going to be ready to go in this position, I'm pretty much from the side in what looks like a number 4. Can you see how that is? So there's a straight line from my head to my butt. There's a pretty straight line from my heels to my head as well, right through my arms. So it kind of looks like the number 4. So when you're watching each other, you can use that as a cue. The primary difference between cleans and deads in that position is this. Number one, in deads, your butt might be just a hair higher, but your hand is going to be turned over. One forward, one backwards. Doesn't matter which way, you can have one here and one there. Okay? But the reason for doing that is that the weight is so heavy on deads that if you hold your hands facing the same way, they'll tend to roll out of your fingers. It's harder to hold it. It's easier to hold it here because it can't really roll. But you couldn't do cleans like this, right? It'd be pretty hard to catch it. And actually, I have seen people do cleans like this. I knew a guy who had an injury in his wrist, and he cleaned 360 pounds like this. And that's because it's not about pulling. It's about creating momentum with your body. So he created enough momentum, he could still catch it on the shoulders here by doing that. Okay? But he was an extreme case from Sweden that was a discus thrower. So anyway, as we go through this, we're going to have to be real careful of those things. We're not trying to do a bunch of weight in the beginning. We're trying to get into a position with our body that we can repeat over and over again. Okay, so if I'm going to do a deadlift, I'm going to address the bar. Number one, what? Jump stance. Number two? And three? Okay. Notice that my arms are pretty much straight down from my shoulders. They're not too wide out here. They're not so close that I can't get my legs up in here. They're just wider than my shoulders. They're just in this position here. It's going to be the same on cleans. Okay, you're here, right down there. So I have about an inch of rough part showing before my hand starts. So from right there, notice my shins are pretty vertical. They're not way out here like this. If I did, then the bar would be away from my body again. So my shins are pretty vertical. My hips are way back behind it. And when I go, I'm going to drive my heels, and I'm going to come straight up, skinning my shin. I'm going to rub my shins the whole way. Right up my shins, all the way up to the top. Okay? On the way down, if you just squat to put it down, with your knees going forward, which is not how you really squat anyway, it's really hard to get the bar around your knees. So you're going to do kind of an RDL, which is a Romanian deadlift. You're going to let the bar stay touching your body, but you're going to put your hips back until it just clears your knees, then you can squat. And at the bottom, you rest just for a second, because you don't want to bounce it and go. Then, again, you go. RDL, squat, and you're ready to go again. Okay? On cleans. Who wants to volunteer on cleans? Anybody? Go ahead. You want to?
No, Gabby spoke first.
Oh, did you beat his hand up? Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. I don't want you sitting there, guys. I don't have any clips on the bar. We would normally put clips on. We're just going live and working on something here. So let's see if he does things right. You know, he just did what's called a full clean. Got a little bit of that across rhythm?
It's a little light.
A little too light? Okay. So go ahead again. We're gonna go over a couple things. What I want you to do for the sake of our learning here, first stand up, stand up. I always want you to address the bar in a jump stance. Feel the steel. And you're a little wide there. See where the smooth part is? Good. And then I want you to go down. Okay? When you jump and catch this, I want you to freeze. Right wherever you catch it, I want you to freeze. Okay, go again. Let's get some balance here. You know, I want you to catch it high. Jump high, catch high. Jump high, catch high. Good. Freeze right there. Now we're going to check that he's in a pretty good squatted position. The elbows are real high. He's got it on his shoulder, so it's not straining his wrist too much. So these elbows need to be pretty parallel to the ground if you can get it there. He's squatted here. Instead of doing the splits, okay, go ahead and stand up. I want you to go back to a jump stance. Now, I didn't say unrack it. Okay? From your squat stance, your athletic stance, back to a jump stance, toes straight ahead. Okay, now I want you to go to unrack. Okay, and now I want you to RDL. Now squat. Okay, now he's back in the ready position. He's got that bar almost in his toes though. See how it's out front too much? Get your shins a little more vertical. Good, good. Now he's in position. Let's go one more. Feel how your okay. I want to hear your feet stomp. When you go, I want to hear that. Okay. And you're rushing things. Come on. Good. And you'll freeze there because we're going to be checking everybody in the room. Then I'll say jumps. Okay, we're going to go through a little routine. I'll go ahead and put it down. I'm going to show you just what everybody's going to do. But before I do, I'm going to give you a little example because just sit for a second. There's several problems that people have when they initially start. Some of them are with the setup. That's why we try to give you easy cues that get you close enough to the bar. You know, with your back flat, using the 4 as a visual. But there's several things that people do. Somebody name one of them that's real common on the way up that people do.
Pull up with your arms.
Yeah, that's perfect. They come off the ground and they're pulling here. Now, Bryce did that just a little bit. I don't know if you guys noticed. When he was coming up, he was already doing this a little bit. Let's say you had 200 pounds, 250 pounds on. You can move it if that's a lift that's legitimate for you. You can move that no problem, like a deadlift coming up if your arms are straight. But if your arms are bent, it'd be pretty tough just to come up with it without your arms sagging a little. You see what I'm saying? So if you try to pull early, there's a saying: if the elbows bend, the power ends. Or when the elbows bend, the power ends. So if you're coming up and you're trying to pull here, now you've just defeated all the power of your hips. Because it's going to absorb it when your hips really fire. It's going to absorb a little bit of that. We want it straight and solid so that you jump and shrug. And then at the last second, when the bar is coming up and you've moved your legs really fast, I have a little weight over there. I'm going to show you something. I saw this on a little YouTube clip. And this represents the bar, the weight that's on the bar. And my hand doesn't represent my arms, it represents my hips. So if my arms were connected like a rope, and they didn't have any muscles at all, they're just connected like a rope to the bar, and I use my hips to come up. You see how my shoulder joint would move? Boom. Okay, so if that happens and I do it fast, the weight goes like this. Pops up. Okay? See what we're saying? So it pops, and it elevates. At that point, right at the high point, see right at the high point right there? However high that is, if it's here, it's not as high as my shoulders. So I have to somehow get my body low enough so that when that bar is stationary right for that instant, I get low enough to be here. Now some people make another mistake getting under it. What is it? To try to get under, what do they do to lower their body? Anybody know? That's not quite right. What?
Spread their feet.
Spread their feet too wide. So the bar's here, so they kind of do the splits to get it low enough to get it on their shoulders. Now they're not in a good position. They look kind of like a starfish here. Okay? So there's another one that's even worse that people do. The bar's here and they try to get under it. So they come like this and they just stay there and they go like this and they try to get low like this. And that's really rough on your lower back. But it's real solid to come up, the bar comes to here, boom, and you're right there. In a good half, quarter squat position. Okay? Now, if you'll do that and your legs explode and your arms are straight and you're thinking of them like ropes, with that little shrug, if you have 200 pounds on the bar, when the bar is moving upwards, it doesn't weigh 200 pounds anymore. Because it's moving, then you can add to it with a little bit of a pull, and it'll help it get a little bit higher. Do you see the difference there? Okay, so we're going to work on those things, and I'm going to have you go one more time. And this is how we're going to do it in my class. We're going to do this. I'm going to give And we're not even going to use any weight. We're going to have it on the ground and we're just going to pick it up. So you're going to pick it up and stand up with it just like as if it's a deadlift. And this is what I'm going to call position 0. Position 0, your feet are in a jump stance, you're straight ahead, your knuckles are good and solid, they're not like hanging down in your fingertips, but they're hanging down like a, yeah, you don't want to have them just hanging down at all. You want your knuckles solid, so you can have a straight line right here, okay? You're standing here nice and tall. That's position 0. Position 1, you're going to do a Romanian deadlift, an RDL. You're going to RDL by pushing your hips back until that bar gets right to the top of your kneecaps. Okay? Now he's in what I call position 1. When I give the command 2, he's going to jump, shrug, and catch and freeze. Okay, ready? 2. I want to hear those feet. I want to hear those feet stomp. You're going to stay there. You're going to stay in 2 because I didn't say anything else yet. Ready? 2. Freeze. Because we're going to be looking around the room and checking, okay, your feet okay? Yeah, they're not too wide. Looks pretty good. He's in a good squat. Elbows are high. Those are good. Then I'm going to say, okay, jump stance. Then you stand up. Jump stance. Jump stance with the feet. And I'm going to say 0. That means you're on rack. Now 1, 2. I want to hear those feet. I want to hear them. Jump stance. 0. 1. I want to hear it. Now come on. Big shrug. Arms straight. 2. Good. Not bad. No, it's okay. It wasn't bad. It really wasn't bad. You still got a pretty good hip thrust in there. Okay. Jump stance. 0. Okay, and that's the routine we're going to do. When you go to put it down, you're going to RDL again. Because, wait, stand back up. Because if you squat down again with those knees going forward, you can't get it around your knees. So you RDL to the kneecap, you clear the kneecaps, then you squat. Good. And then you're done with the lift. Eventually we'll come from before. Thank you. Give him a hand. We will work our way towards bringing it from the floor. But it's more difficult to do it from the floor, technique-wise, because some people get their back all messed up. So we're going to start there, then we're going to start gradually getting a little lower, where we go all the way from the floor once we get pretty good at cleaning in a hang clean position. So for today, we're going to have nothing but bars, and we had some other things to cover real quick before we split up. You want to put the other